So hi everyone, it's Ryan here, and I'm going to do a quick video on introjection. I've been thinking quite a lot about this over the last few days, and I just like to share it on video instead of trying to write it out, because I think it's quite a complicated defense and we need to really kind of reflect a little deeper about it. So this is especially for the fours, but if you're not a four and you're in a relationship with fours, or if you know a four, it might also be helpful to you as well. So introjection is a lot about being like a sponge. Like as fours, we can feel quite sponge-like, I think. So it's like we can absorb both the positive and the negative qualities from other people and from people, especially when we were younger, that we were abandoned by. And I think that's the key point here. And in order to understand the defense, we need to kind of go back to childhood and to reflect on the theme of abandonment, because that seems to be, for most fours, that seems to show up quite strongly. Like when we were younger, we had this experience of often feeling like we had what we needed, feeling like we had kind of a paradise, or that there was magic in life, and that we had everything that we needed in order to live that magic, and then in some way we felt like it was taken away. So that sets up this feeling of abandonment. So it might have been that your parents, your caregivers, nurturing figure or protective figure, we might have felt abandoned by them, by one or both, but the object relation tells us that for most fours, it usually has to do with both the nurturing and the protective figures. We tend to feel some abandonment from. So what that sets up is this affect of frustration. Like we kind of get it, and it feels good, and then we lose it. So our relationships can be like that as fours as well. We can feel like we're getting it, and we kind of being mirrored, or we're being understood, or people are seeing us as we like to be seen, and then we lose it. So, and that's this kind of push-pull relationship that we have. And what's really important to understand is that where that comes from is these early experiences where we perceived we were being abandoned. Obviously, sometimes it was really true, we were being abandoned, but sometimes it's our perception, it's kind of, we were projecting that abandonment. It didn't always happen like we think it did. So what really counts is that we felt we were abandoned. And what happens is that, let's say, your dad or your mom abandoned, or, let's say they had a sequence in which you experienced some abandonment from one or both parents. Then what that does for the four psyche is it's like the four still hangs on to something good in those people. So it's kind of like we still hang on to this ideal that we're still searching for, that they gave us something good, and we still want that. So even though we felt like they left us in some way, we still, it sets us up with this ideal that we're still looking for that thing. So that's why fours come into relationships in quite an idealized way. We tend to have quite high expectations that we put in other people, because we kind of lost something when we were younger, and because of that loss, it builds this kind of ideal in us where we're searching for what we lost. But we also have this experience that we were left, that we were abandoned, that we didn't get what we needed, that we were disappointed, that people didn't quite see us, or they didn't quite meet us in the way that we wanted to be met. So it sets up this knowledge and this memory that we were disappointed. So when we come into relationships, it's kind of like we have the ideal, but we also have the experience of being abandoned or disappointed. So it's kind of like, we still know that that's going to come. So when we get let down, when we get abandoned by people, we perceive that we're being abandoned, or we're not being seen, understood, mirrored in the ways that we want. Then what we can do as fours is go to this negative side of introjection, where we go into this kind of moodiness, drama, where we kind of become quite sulky, we kind of become very inward, self-absorbed, and we control, myself. When I look back at my life and look at my life, how I am in relationships, it's easy for me to control in that way, because people sometimes from the other side, or from outside of the four kind of psyche, people relating with us can feel like they're stepping on eggshells, because any wrong move might set off this kind of drama and self-absorption, which doesn't really feel good for other people. So it's really important to understand that we can go to this negative side of introjection, where we take on too much, and it's very difficult to get clear about what we're feeling and what we're thinking, because it's all kind of this murky mess, and we're all kind of in this drama, self-absorbed, and not really seeing anything on the outside. So that's kind of the negative side of introjection. The positive side is holding up the ideal, the negative side is being disappointed by that ideal, and then just kind of soaking up everything and going into this, for lack of a better word, like a big sulk, and that, like I said before, that can be a way of controlling in relationships, because people, our partners, especially in our close friends, would want to avoid that big sulk. And I think if any of you watching aren't fours and you know a four, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's not a pleasant thing to be around, and it can be quite draining. So our partners and friends will probably try to avoid that as much as they can. So what we have to do as fours, in order to work with this defense, the way I'm really understanding it and reflecting about it, is we have to be willing to be more vulnerable. So when we see ourselves in some kind of a sulk, or when we experience ourselves withdrawing and kind of going into that murky space, whatever it is for you, where you kind of go really inward and withdrawn, then it's important to just kind of reflect and say, what's going on here for me? What's the trigger? And for a lot of fours, and this is definitely true for me, is it will often be around not being heard, not being understood, not being seen, not being people not being present with me in the way that I want. So if you're a four, then you probably expect people to be present in quite a deep way. We want people to be very, very much present with us on all kind of levels, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We want the whole lot. And if they don't live up to that expectation, like I said, it's easy to feel disappointed. But it's good to remember that sometimes it's our projection, like they really are listening to us, they really are seeing us, they really are understanding us, but it's the way we are wired, so that we kind of have this projection of them doing something that they're actually not doing. So it's really good to check that, because for me, if I can just be willing to be wrong in my relationships, and then just go, hey, listen to my partner, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing, let her come back and give me some feedback, then at least that willingness to be wrong allows some movement in the relationship. I don't have to go right back into that negative side where I kind of become self-absorbed, etc. I can take the feedback, and then I can be in relationship again. I'm in relationship with what's actually troubling me, with what's difficult inside. And because it's clearer, because I'm in more clarity around what that is, I'm able to express it. And because of my willingness to be wrong, I'm able to take feedback, and then there's some balance there. I don't have to go into that whole introjective swing in a way. So I think that's really important. And then sometimes, because that's also our gift as a four, to be able to be empathic and to listen very deeply on an emotional level, sometimes our partners and friends really aren't being present with us in the ways that they could be. And my sense is that we're totally within our rights to say, hey, listen, please, I'm asking for a little bit more than you're giving right now. And that's also about, I think, the maturity of just being able to say it like it is, rather than to go into these kinds of moods and these dramas. So hopefully that makes sense, and I'd love to know more about your comments or your questions and take the conversation further. Okay, thanks. Ciao for now.